Thanks for logging on to fan590.com. David Alter alongside Mark Masters. Another Hamilton City Council session in the books. A scheduled one, not an emergency meeting this time. First for me, at least. I don't know about you. But a unanimous support to at least look into the plan to refurbish Ivor Wynne, which I guess is not really a shock, Mark, but maybe the amount of disdain from councillors that we heard throughout that 3.5-hour session. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of optimism that this will actually be seen through and 2.5 weeks, or make that 1.5 weeks from now, that a viable fiscal plan could actually be presented here.
Well, I have been to regularly scheduled council meetings. I have not seen unanimous support for a motion, which we saw today with them approving to go ahead and study the Rebuild Ivor Wynne project. So that was interesting, even though they quibbled over the phrasing preferred site. They didn't want Ivor Wynne to be dubbed the preferred site of the city because they thought that would weaken the city in negotiations with the Ticats. They still have to hammer out a lease agreement and other specifics. Yeah, I mean, the city, it's a tough road for city manager Chris Murray. He's got to study this. He's got to look at all the different avenues that come with building a stadium, and he has to do it in a condensed time frame. They want to hear back from him by January 24th. So he's got to do this very quickly, and he's admitted there are going to be caveats when he comes back. There are going to be questions that he will not have certain answers to. And the question is, will councillors be able to approve it without all of the holes filled in completely?
And I think that's probably the biggest point in that, the fact that you can't get concrete numbers in that short a time. I've got to believe that enough councillors are not going to be happy with that kind of answer when it comes to the numbers that are presented 12 days from now. Now, I'm no expert in financial policy or social policy, but from judging by the amount of negativity that we saw behind this plan, I've got to think that one of two things can happen. They vote yes, they go ahead with this without the certainty of what it's going to cost, and it balloons, and then we see what happens to other regimes whenever they approve plans that are too costly. They eventually get voted out, and it becomes a whole debacle and a whole mess, which is possible. Or they just rule this out completely and go with a backup West Harbour plan, or no backup at all. What's your best guess happens here?
I think that Chris Murray will come back with a report that will be enough for a majority, not all, but a majority of city councillors to approve and say, this is it. This is our last chance to keep the Ticats in Hamilton, to use the $70 million in public sector funding that's on the table, and put this issue in the past. I think a more interesting question may be, what does Ian Troop in Toronto 2015 do? Because if Hamilton City Council approves a plan that has some unanswered questions still, has a few holes, because again, it's a condensed time frame. Can the city staff come up with a plan that meets their criteria in the time frame allowed, which is February 1st is the deadline? So will Ian Troop say, you know what, we have enough answers, you've met the criteria, we're going forward? Or will he say, you know what, I'm sorry, you just didn't get it done by February 1st, we're going to put this smaller stadium in either Mississauga or Brampton? So that could happen as well. There's a lot of variables still at play here in this situation.
Interesting timing for host co-boss Ian Troop to set up a teleconference for the very next morning after this council meeting adjourned. What do you think he has on his mind? What do you think he's going to say? Or is he just there to answer questions?
Well, I mean, the conference called to go Thursday morning at 10:30 with reporters. It was scheduled before this Hamilton City Council meeting, so he didn't know what Hamilton City Council was going to do. So it's interesting. I don't know what he's going to say. He has sent out releases in the past after major turning points in this dispute, after the city of Burlington had a meeting to approve a study to look at the Aldershot Stadium location. He sent out a release later that day saying, by the way, February 1st is still the deadline, no exceptions, even for a new site coming in. So maybe he just wants to say that again. But he hasn't really commented on the Ivor Wynne process at all. He's in the past shied away from commenting specifically on sites, saying, this is a Hamilton situation, and I'm going to wait till Hamilton gets me an answer. So, all eyes will be on Ian Troop, or rather all ears, on this conference call tomorrow or Thursday morning at 10:30.
In the past, we had heard from Troop saying that, it's got to be new facilities and a legacy has to be created with these new facilities. This didn't really justify that initial motion. Where is this coming from that now this would be okay?
Well, again, this is a last gasp effort
Right.
here by the Ticats, who have admitted this is far from ideal, this plan. This is not, there was other places they could have gone, and Bob Young basically decided, you know what, I just can't bring myself to move this team from Hamilton. So when you come to that conclusion and you rule out Moncton or other locations, you have to say, okay, what's left in Hamilton? Well, West Harbour, which is what the city had wanted originally, is unfeasible. It just, the Ticats can't accept it. Every other site had been ruled out as too costly and too expensive. They couldn't get it done. So Ivor Wynne was really the last thing on the table. So that's how that really came about. The question is it a legacy? Well, the Ticats will be the anchor tenant at a new Ivor Wynne, and there are suggestions that a professional soccer team could come. But again, PanAm Games is supposed to be for amateur sport. So again, it'll be interesting to see what Ian Troop's response is to the legacy idea. But again, the Ticats as an anchor tenant, that is a viable legacy for a new Ivor Wynne Stadium.
Important to know, Bob Young also does own a USL team down south as well, and so soccer certainly on his front of mind, and I imagine some sort of wheel would get in motion if he's still around as part of the ownership process.
Yeah, I mean,
to try and bring that kind of team into the Golden Horseshoe area.
Originally, when it was back at West Harbour and East Mountain, he had one of the things he had been pushing. He said, "Listen, I'm going to try and bring a professional soccer team to Hamilton as part of this new stadium deal." So he owns a team, or he's involved at least with a team south of the border, and that was definitely in the conversation. So that could be another legacy. Again, that's professional sport though, not amateur sport. And we've heard city councilors say this is not supposed to be catering to private businesses. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the next 12 days until they have to come back and give a report.
We'll see what Troop says in the morning, and not June, I'm losing track of time here. January 24th, June was the first meeting I came in here, and that's how long this has been, at least for me, although it's been at least 14 months since everything was discussed, and we finally got to this point. But January 24th, the next City Council meeting, really going to be a real turning point, and no real room for error in this one. It really is going to be go for it, and then see what you can do. That will be the next meeting, and I likely will be there for that as well. I know Mark Masters will be.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
That's Mark Masters. You can catch his work on nationalpost.com, or you can pick up the paper. I'm David Alter. Thanks for logging on to fan590.com.